In 1995, Tokyo is an environment of total engineering. To live here is to be surrounded by safety nets so invisible and constant that most people completely forget they even exist. 11 college friends gather at a local beach to finish a boat handling course. When their instructor fails to show up on time, 19-year-old Kenji convinces the group to take their motorboat out for a quick, unsupervised lap around the bay. 10 minutes in, the joyride turns into a mechanical nightmare. The steering wheel jams mid-turn, and as they scramble to cut the engine, the brakes fail. With the throttle stuck open, the boat charges straight into the Pacific. The boys watch from the deck as the Japanese coastline dissolves into a thin gray smudge on the horizon. In less than an hour, these teenagers are completely severed from the modern world. They are trapped on a steel coffin with no way to steer or stop. For 4 days, they drift. They endure the midday sun and a brutal nighttime storm, huddling together as the hull groaned under the weight of the waves. On the 5th morning, they spot a single green peak rising out of the water. They manage to run the failing boat aground on the white sand of a deserted island. The relief of reaching land is short-lived. A quick survey reveals they're on a remote landmass with no infrastructure, no adults, and no way to signal the ships passing miles away. The environment is only half the threat. To survive this, they have to maintain their social cohesion and resist the primal impulse to turn on one another for resources. Their first priority is fresh water. They spent 2 days scouring the island's interior before tracing a faint trickle to a small hidden waterfall that provides a permanent supply of sweet water. For food, they rely on Hiroshi, an avid reader who studied wilderness survival back in college. He spent hours identifying edible plants for the group, once physically stopping a boy named Yuma from eating a bright, attractive fruit that was actually a lethal neurotoxin. Lacking any tools from the boat, they turned to the beach, grinding seashells and volcanic rocks against boulders to create razor-sharp knives and spearheads. On day 9, they secure their first major caloric win. Using their makeshift spears in the shallow reefs, they successfully hunt a large fish. By securing water, identifying safe foods, and manufacturing tools, the group moves past the immediate threat of starvation and establishes the foundation of a working society. Hunger eventually takes a psychological toll. After weeks of limited rations, 2 of the boys, Ren and Takeshi, get into a violent fistfight over a single scrap of meat. Kenji intervenes, setting a new, non-negotiable law. Every single resource gathered by the group must be divided into 11 mathematically equal portions, regardless of who found it or who worked the hardest. The group's commitment to one another is tested when Soda falls ill with a severe fever, followed by a sudden disaster where Yuma slips on a steep, rain-slicked cliff and shatters his arm. Rather than seeing the injured as a drain on resources, the healthy boys divide the extra labor. They work longer hours to forage and hunt, while others stay behind to nurse the sick and injured back to health. By refusing to abandon their weakest members, they transform from a group of terrified castaways into a community defined by its own moral and legal code. By the 3rd year, morale hits a breaking point. They discover a human skeleton in a cave, proof that people have died here before, and stand helpless to watch as a storm destroys a raft they had spent months building for an escape. This failure forces a shift in their entire strategy. They stop waiting for a rescue ship and begin making plans to live on the island permanently. Searching for a better camp, they push through the dense, uncharted brush of the island's highest ridge. There, they find the ruins of an abandoned village, complete with self-seeding vegetable patches and a large flock of feral chickens. Instead of eating the birds immediately, they manage the resource. They build pens and protect the flock, allowing it to grow to over 200 birds, providing a high-yield supply of eggs that secures their nutrition for years. This agricultural shift elevates them from desperate hunter-gatherers to a self-sustaining society with a predictable future. 8 years pass. While stripping parts from their original rusted-out boat, the boys find a small piece of a broken magnifying glass. On a bright afternoon in their 9th year, Hiroshi and Yuma focus a beam of sunlight onto dried coconut fibers until the material finally ignites. The discovery of fire is emotional. For the first time in nearly a decade, the boys share a warm, cooked meal, an experience that reduces the entire group to tears. Fire is the final piece of their civilization. It provides heat and sanitation, but it also provides a way to communicate with the horizon. They use the fire to maintain a massive smoke beacon on the island's highest peak, keeping a 24-hour watch to ensure the signal never dies. Months later, a fishing boat lost in a storm notices the thick black smoke. The captain, confused by signs of life on an uninhabited island, decides to investigate. As the ship approaches, the crew finds 11 men who look like they belong to a different century. These are the boys who went missing 9 years ago, now unrecognizable to the world that had forgotten them. The rescue leads to a surreal return to Tokyo. The boys reunite with families who had long ago stopped hoping, finding a world that has moved on for a decade without them. The survival of these 11 boys is a testament to the power of structured cooperation. They lasted 9 years by proving that even in total isolation, the most effective tool for human endurance is the deliberate rebuilding of civilization.